right now. The other thing we're seeing is obviously technology shifts and changes on automation. We're seeing companies wanting to do more with less. So we're having to help companies with some layoffs or just some restructuring because they can purchase tech instead of having to pay for overhead. And then that way, one person can do more with their job and it kind of starts to make some jobs obsolete.
Welcome to the Growth Experts Podcast. Today's guest, I have Michelle Griffin. She is the owner and founder of GriffinResources.com. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Welcome. I'm glad you're on the Growth Experts Podcast. So, share a bit about your background and how it fits into the bigger picture over at Griffin Resources.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so my background, I'll kind of go back a little bit, is mostly in HR. I weirdly was an auto theft and arson investigator right out of college. So I did that for a couple of years, kind of just that stemmed from my interest in psychology. So my undergrad was in psychology. I did minor in marketing just from kind of getting to know business a little better. My parents were business owners and they encouraged me to kind of stay on that business path, even though my passion was psychology. And so right out of college, I ended up getting a job at an insurance company and did auto theft investigations, which was a really interesting dynamic of just understanding human behavior at that point, which I actually kind of continued to use those skills into human resources. And I ended up taking a job in my late 20s when I was in grad school for industrial organizational psychology, which that's the research degree of human capital in the workforce and how to make people efficient, hire the right people for the right job, how to, get the most out of your people and align your people with your company goals. This is really the best practices behind IO psychology and assessments and things like that. And so while I was in grad school is when I got my first job in HR and really got the expertise of the practical application of IO psychology. And then I very quickly became the head of HR at a large IT company. They had about 300 employees when I started, and they had about 850 employees across 10 states and 4 countries when I left. I went to a residential construction company to become their director of HR, and I was there for 2 years before I kind of started working on my PhD, also in IO psychology. So I was able to really apply the knowledge that I had gained from working in business in addition to kind of understanding the research side. And now I've kind of combined both of those. So while I was finishing up my degree or starting my dissertation process, so I was done with coursework, but starting to work on my dissertation, that's when I decided to go independent. And I thought I would just be an independent contractor while working on my degree, just to kind of have some side work, have some income, and then continue to work without, kind of disrupting a company and not, really not have the time to be a director anymore. That did not last very long. I was only by myself and independent for 3 months before I ended up with 8 clients and hired 2 full-time people. And that became the beginning of the firm. And so we quickly grew that through COVID and continue to help companies really understand the value of their people, how to help them with mental health through COVID. There was a lot of people and companies relying on HR at that time. Before that, HR was really kind of seen as like a necessary evil or just kind of something you needed to help your employees. But really with COVID, it brought that out and, kind of brought that to the forefront of a lot of company owners' minds. And so that really helped the company take off. So now I've had the business for 6 years and we have about 40 team members and 85 clients nationwide.
Awesome. 40 team members, 85 clients nationwide, 6 years. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, what does a typical day look like for you, Michelle?
Oh gosh, for me now, I definitely work more on the business. I don't take client work anymore. I haven't for several years now. So my role as CEO is to really help make sure that the what we have for the company is stable. We have, good stream of revenue and the clients are supported. The team members are supported. I'm always kind of working on our technology, our automation, any kind of branding and up-to-date concepts on the business, working with our leadership team and kind of working on any kind of escalations that happen and that kind of thing. So for my day-to-day is mostly usually internal meetings that have to do with our technology, our support systems, our, internal teams, our leadership team. Oftentimes I'm kind of helping with, writing proposals or approving pricing and things like that along the way, meeting with vendor relations or other kind of, I would say independent contractors we might need to utilize along the way if we just don't have an expert expertise on our team that our clients need. So those are kind of like some of the meetings that I have throughout the day, in addition to kind of like computer work. I still do the oversight of all of our accounting, our invoicing, payroll. Like we have obviously accountants and bookkeepers that prepare all of that, but that's one thing that as a business owner, I've never let go of. I've just seen a lot of fraud in my world, especially when it comes to, just white collar crime, when business owners can, they just let some of their checks and balances slip up. So just kind of learning from my own, experiences. So a lot of that, I still manage all of those, payments and processes and financials on the businesses too.
So essentially, you never stop working. You're like 200 hours a week.
Yes, but it's not that bad. It's I've got a great team and a great group of people, so it's kind of one of those things where you really enjoy working with people and making sure that they feel supported and their careers are it's okay. So, working with a great group of people is always help, make the days go by really quickly. And I still get to work from wherever I want. So that is always helpful. I'm always working, but I'm also always traveling. So most of the time, my husband and I are gone internationally about once a month. So we do have the freedom to work from anywhere, and we kind of take that a little seriously, maybe sometimes a little too seriously that we're always gone. But because of some of the other businesses that we have, we're able to get a lot of points and travel on points and things like that. So that's kind of how we get to do
That's
that.
good. Yeah. When you guys get the flyer mileage and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So when it comes to, any major shifts that you're seeing in your industry right now, what has been an impact for you? What's been an impact in your industry or for your
The
business or
yeah,
businesses?
Yeah. So a lot of what we're seeing is obviously impacting our clients. And what's
Hmm.
nice is we diversified. So we don't have one particular type of client, which has really been a good, stable foundation for the business, mainly because my background was both in tech and then in construction. So I kind of saw and felt how HR can be applied across different industries and just having to learn, different regulations and certain situations that require obviously like safety is different in construction versus tech, but still having to make sure that we had the support for different industries. So because of that, when certain industries or economic issues hit certain companies, it doesn't overall impact the company, but we are seeing it really impact our clients. So obviously tariffs have really hit our manufacturing clients. We've started to see some companies that have wanted to bring manufacturing to the States have started to actually see some, issues with red tape and things like that. So we are seeing, companies, even foreign companies, set up in manufacturing here in the States. So we're helping them do that. But in the meantime, some of them couldn't move fast enough. So we do have an issue sometimes with that. We did have and do have government entities, and obviously with grant approvals and government funding for that has some impact on them as well. We're also seeing just investors that a lot of our clients rely on have either pulled back or just not seen as much investments that they had in the past. So some of the clients that were working on rounds of funding or private equity or something to that nature, just with uncertainties in the economy, we're seeing not as much of evaluations as some of our clients would like and things like that too. A lot of times we help them grow and scale, and then we help them kind of make sure that they're in compliance for certain evaluations and sales and things like that. So we're just seeing a lot of different impacts in the economy for our clients right now. The other thing we're seeing is obviously technology shifts and changes on automation. We're seeing companies wanting to do more with less. So we're having to help companies with some layoffs or just some restructuring because they can purchase tech instead of having to pay for overhead. And then that way, one person can do more with their job, and it kind of starts to make some jobs obsolete. And so we're starting to see that with a lot of different, not necessarily overall industries, but jobs within the industry. So accounting is being affected, bookkeeping is being affected. So a lot of times you can do a lot with a staff accountant, and you may not need, certain levels of, a full-time person or something like that. So we're starting to see them either want to completely lay off people or just move to part-time or fractional spaces like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. So it seems like you have a good head on your shoulders when it comes to, the tech stack and what's being introduced into, our world in terms of the people business, and whether it's human resources or recruiting or talent acquisition. And I think you kind of have a good eye on market share in terms of your competition as well.
Yeah, there's a lot that's happening with companies asking how do they hire the right people? How do they make sure that they can do the job they're being hired for? A lot of times we turn to assessments and, proper interviewing skills and things like that. But then we also work with companies just from a leadership perspective to make sure that they know how to run their business with the resources that they have, and that they're hiring the right resource for the business needs, and aligning the human capital with their growth strategies as well. So that's kind of something we help with from a leadership perspective, in addition to just hiring practices. But a lot of times there's just so much happening with technology so quickly, that it's really hard to make sure that the people's skills are keeping up with the demand as well. So we often help companies upskill their people too, so that the people that are there are skilled to continue to do their job and use the resources that are becoming available to them too, without, really trying to strip away from the talent as much as possible. Sometimes it's just more economical to use the technology than it is to keep people. But a lot of times it's, helping people evolve and change and grow and strengthen their skills too.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about your team, your amazing team. I'm looking at the website here. I see Alexandra and Shannon, and I know you have a pretty big team here, but we're gonna have to talk about every last one of them. But tell me, how did you come up with such a fantastic team? How do they help you on the day-to-day operations, whether you're out of town or not, and how does that look for your clients if someone was to hire you?
Yeah, so all of our team members work remotely, which that happened because of COVID, which really helped out. And then we just were able to maintain that. Some of our clients do want us to visit on site, and they'll pay for our travel and things like that. But for the most part, we're able to completely support our clients remotely. Most of my team, I would say, is homegrown. Alex she runs my talent acquisition division, and I have been with her the majority of her adult life. So I hired her when I was at the tech company. She was, I would say, right out of college, a couple of years out of college. So I was her boss there. And she started off as my HR assistant. And then within a few months, I realized she had a lot of potential for growth. So I asked her if she wanted to move into talent acquisition or if she wanted to stay in HR. Chose to move into talent acquisition back then. And she's obviously continued to grow her career in recruiting and talent acquisition. And then when I started the business, I asked her to come on board. She told me no, because I was a startup and unstable, and she was right. But then when COVID hit, she was one of the people impacted by her company for a layoff. So then she came on board as a contractor, and she started with me. I think the company was about 6 months old then. And so she worked for the, second half of the year for me. And then we were able to bring her on as an employee right after that, so the beginning of January. So she's been with me about 5 years now. And so as she continued to do the recruiting and understand our structure and come up with, kind of our billing structure and offerings and value that we really created for our clients, as she continued to, become more of a leader and less of a, actual administrator. And so that's kind of what she does now. So she became, an executive leader in the company over time.
I
Melissa
can I can
is
imagine I can imagine why. She's brutally honest with you in the beginning. She's like, "No, you're a startup."
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
she's always really good at being very honest with me, which is great. We have a lot of ability to grow and change together, which is awesome. I like it when I get challenged. I was like, I always want people in the room that are smarter than me and more talented, and she's definitely one of those people. I would not be able to offer talent acquisition without her. And then for Melissa, she's the same thing. She's been with me about a year and a half now. And she was brought on as a VP of HR to support our clients. And within maybe 6 months, I promoted her to managing the team. So she oversees HR and payroll and that entire division as an executive. And so now she supports escalations for clients and, manages a lot of the, kind of the harder conversations with clients about something that they need for if they need to be restructuring, if, some of the more higher level situations, she handles that with, our clients and our team members to help, kind of deal with some of those high level needs. And then Shannon, I got her with an acquisition. So last year I acquired AK Consultants and Care and Healthcare. And so she was one of the top lead salespeople in AK. And so she very quickly became the lead of those entire service offerings. So what we are now able to do with our clients is help them grow their business development, which we were not able to do before. So we do sales coaching, leadership coaching, and kind of some of those back end ops and more of that level of chief revenue officer type COO level needs and coaching and running those divisions with some smaller businesses that are still kind of getting off the ground and getting sales away from the business owners and running that for them. So yeah, it kind of just became people really seeing the value in people. And then we use our own leadership coach internally as well. I've seen other companies do that horrible thing where people are really good at their job, so they get promoted, but then they're not really taught how to manage people. So make sure I didn't also do that. I made sure to bring in my leadership coach for them. And so every single person on my team, everyone from payroll specialist to HR generalist to everybody, gets to work with our leadership coach and make sure that their career goals are being met, that we're supporting them the way they need to, and that they are getting their advancement in skills, including being able to be leaders and managers as well. So that's how I built the team.
Awesome. That's awesome. So tell me, in regards to AI and tech stack, I know you kind of touched on these, these things earlier, but what's working well for you right now in terms of, or what's frustrating? And has that disruption or these new trends in 2026 now, because it's constantly evolving, has that impacted your business in a good way, a negative way? Are you just catching up?
I have a strange answer to that most companies wouldn't answer, but I just created a new company to solve that problem. So my husband and I
Yeah,
are
that's
unique in the
awesome.
fact that if we are able to make our own solution, we'll make a company for
Yeah.
it. So we actually have 6 companies that we run. We do have about 100 employees across 4 countries. And so we do actually manage quite a bit. I don't have to do a lot of the day to day for most of those. But one of the companies that we do have is called Griffin Cloud. And that one is purposely not revenue generating. We do help some of our friends out with their businesses. And so we do use that company if someone wants us to build a website or help them with their marketing. But for the most part, we use Griffin Cloud to support Griffin Resources and Griffin IT internally as our own marketing and for our own development. We have developers in the Philippines, Pakistan, and India. And so with that, we are able to kind of lean on a lot of expertise for random resources that we want. So for example, we built very complex data dashboards with Power BI. So we use that. We have a lot of data that gets fed from our clocking and our ticketing system that we have. So we use that to keep track of our projects and our hourly work and rates with our clients, and that gets fed into Power BI. So we manage the workflow for that, making sure we're staying on target, on time, on budget, and things like that, and that our team members are hitting the hours that they want to make and things like that. So we have a lot of data for that. We also have our own CRM that we have, so for our own sales and business development. So we have the company itself, Griffin Cloud, has, I want to say, like 30 team members. I probably only work with 10 or 12 of them directly, so I actually don't know the whole team. James also works with more people over there as well. So we have different team members that support us in different ways. But I think I directly work with 2 CRM developers, maybe 3. And we also have our own website developers. We have our own SEO, expertise, so that we're optimizing, the website and the development of that. We are coming up with a new website in order to meet those needs and things like that. And then one of the things we did try to work on was building an AI bot ourselves. We did run into a lot of issues with it, so we paused the project because we really weren't getting the results that we needed. AI tends to still make believe stuff, it lies, and we really wanted it to, have its own knowledge base of work so that we could help our team to work better, work faster, be able to support all of our clients and, things like that. But a lot of times we just weren't able to get it to read the data we wanted it to. We wanted it to be able to read the libraries we have in SharePoint, understand, our offerings, understand our team members. And really, because we have so many team members, we didn't want managers to forget about certain expertise. So right now we kind of just reach out to the team to say, who has this expertise, who knows this, technology or this payroll system. And we kind of just say, anyone, we need to support this client this way, tell us how you can do that. Rather than try to do that all of the time, we wanted to teach this bot all those answers. And then that way we could just ask it, for some insight of our team members so that, we kind of know who to lean on and things like that. And we honestly just ran into a lot of technology issues of it not forgetting people or lying or whatever. So we kind of just paused it. And I just think AI is just not where it needs to be. There's a lot of, obviously, no matter what the AI is, everyone is kind of still having those problems that it just makes stuff up.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's still room for
The AI
improvement.
is still a thing.
But there's definitely room for improvement. You always have to have the human behind the machine when it comes to AI. But do you think that particular issue just pertains to you, or is it industry wide? Because if it
I
didn't work for
mean,
you and you guys tried to build something, doesn't mean it's not working for others.
yeah, we've reached out to, other resources because, there's a lot of time and effort it takes to build something. We had a lot of proprietary knowledge, so we were trying to protect a lot of that information. So that's why we went internal. Just from what I understand, speaking with other AI bot providers, that kind of challenge is still there. But, we're always open to talking to other companies, other developers. We have a lot of friends and colleagues in that development space that have put millions of dollars into research into these companies. And some of them are,
Mhm.
our business partners and things like that too. And a lot of it is, we're still kind of seeing that same kind of result. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's ChatGPT, if it's, Copilot, they're all kind of still seeing the same thing at this point.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So, where do you want Griffin Resources to be, or all of your business to be? Because from what I heard in our previous conversations, all 6 of your companies are kind of work in unison with each other, or they're all kind of
Mhm.
in cahoots, or they all support each other in some way. So, where do you want Griffin Resources and all of your companies as a whole to be in the next 6 to 12 months? Are you guys looking at exit strategies for some of the companies, or just keeping them all in house and working until old age?
I mean, we're still kind of growing the businesses. We have a lot of exciting, growth opportunities within each of them. So we are not particularly looking at anything, but there are strategic exits, that we're working towards. There's always, we definitely would want to make sure that there's some kind of succession plan, that we understand what investment opportunities these companies need to, go on and live their lives and things like that too.
Mhm.
Um, so
So
that's
you're
kind
so
of,
you're not gonna build your own private equity firm and just buy out your own companies, are you?
we already did. So but
I was
essentially what
joking. I
happened.
was joking. Okay, I was joking.
So technically what we did is we built Griffin Capital Holdings, and Griffin Capital Holdings, we use that for some small investments. We've never done like fundings or anything like that. Everything we have is homegrown. And so I've never actually been through the process of what it takes to like ask for capital or anything like that. But what we did do is, just from the investments that we have, Griffin Capital owns Griffin IT and Griffin Resources, and then it shares ownership of Griffin Cloud and Griffin Wings and some other investment companies that we have. And so we've used that to make smaller investments into bridge loans and things like that with some businesses, just tens of thousands of dollars kinds of thing. And so that's kind of like if there were something, with Griffin Resources or Griffin IT, it's all a business ownership structure. It's not owned by
Mhm.
individuals. So
Awesome. I love the way you guys structured that. That's pretty cool. You got your own holding company that owns your own companies, and then you help other companies.
yeah, yeah. So we
Yeah.
really became entrepreneurship type minded. Especially getting our businesses into 7 figures. It'd be really cool to get them to 8 figures. So we'll kind of see if we can get them into the tens of millions kind of thing. But it does take a lot to grow to that kind of space, and what it really takes to get those kinds of I would say, support structures and financial structures and things like that. So we've been learning a lot from our friends that have businesses that got that big, and how and that kind of stuff too. We have a lot of great business relationships that I didn't think would be necessary as an entrepreneur. We have great relationships with our banks. So honestly, like, I literally could call up the division president of our bank, like, on his cell, and I text with him. And there's so many stories of us traveling and the bank literally transferring money for us, paying bills for us, paying taxes for us, just, through cashier's checks that we had to send to the IRS while we were traveling because we couldn't physically send a check to the IRS. So yeah, it's stuff like that where I wouldn't have thought, honestly, being excited to work with your bankers. And same thing with our corporate attorneys. Our corporate attorneys are amazing. CPA firm is awesome. So I've had some poor relationships in the past, and ones that, really didn't know how to scale with us. And, once we kind of got past some of those hurdles and found the right resources, literally the sky's the limit with those resources. So as advice I would give to early entrepreneurs is to really understand the value of those relationships and find the best ones, because you want to be able to text and call ironically, your bank and your
Yeah,
and your
definitely.
CPA and your attorney and that kind of stuff, without having to worry about, any kind of breach or being charged an arm and a leg for that kind of support.
Yeah, definitely. So, if there's any advice that you can give to early on entrepreneurs, in the executive search or recruiting, or any recruiters that are thinking about starting their own firm, what would you give them starting off within their first year of business? What type of advice could you give them?
So I would say you definitely have to know your own differentiating value. It took me way too long, and I mean like 3 years, to figure that out. Some of the things that I would sticker shock clients, because we would do the work, we'd send them the bill, and then they're shocked because they would be like, even if we, had the CFO understanding the price structure, the CEO would get the bill and be upset. So, definitely making sure you have really good, not necessarily contracts and agreements, but, having your pricing structure laid out, having, budgets agreed upon with your clients. And, obviously, if you're going to go over budget for any reason, making sure that you get, obviously, all of that approved and in writing and things like that too. So there's certain things that I had to change my pricing structure year over year. I've been able to stabilize our price structure for the last couple of years. Even with the economic changes, we haven't needed to increase our pricing, which is really good. We can stay competitive within our industry. But, obviously, with recruiters and recruiting agencies, there's so many out there. So you really have to know your competition, what your competition is offering, what makes you different, and being able to speak to that. And then also making sure that you are able to articulate, obviously, all your pricing structure and how you want to get paid, if it's half up front, half it higher, or whatever, or if you want to do it monthly or all the way at the end with a guarantee, if you can afford to float the capital until you get paid. So those are some of the things that, really we had to figure out how, what could we afford to do? How long can we afford to float capital until we get paid? How much did we have to accept up front? And again, it took me many years to be able to stabilize that and articulate it and put it in writing and make sure everyone was agreeing on the same kind of price structure. And then also working with clients as I had to change that price structure over the years. Luckily, I didn't really lose too many clients over any pricing squabbles, but for the most part, at one point I went from pre-billing to post-billing, and I was collecting at the beginning of the month for the work that we were anticipating doing. And then I ended up not really wanting to track the money that way. And I ended up going into post-billing, which meant that I had to do the work and then invoice for it and then collect it. And so there's like a 45-day gap of paying people and then collecting the money. So having enough money and capital to do that. So there's a lot that I had learned when it comes to running a business that I didn't think I would have to learn, that I would definitely say if anyone's out there and interested, definitely will share all of my market value knowledge that I've learned over the years. I'll tell you all my tips and tricks, because it is hard to really figure that out. It took me a lot to be able to articulate it and identify it and then stick with it.
Yeah, there's definitely a growth phase and learning curves, and mistakes made, but it made you better. I mean, 6 companies, a holding company. I mean, gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and,
Quite a journey, quite a journey.
yeah, and being able to get to 7 figures fairly quickly. Griffin Resources got to 7 figures within 3 years, and we've stayed there. Griffin IT is well into 7 figures now, and so which that one is hardware. Someone sells hardware to managed service providers. So that one is easier to scale because you're selling a product versus a service.
Right.
And so that one we scaled. Same time, it was parallel, the same kind of time frame, about 6 years. So it's definitely different running a business of that size. And so I know the same as like running a service and running a sales company and things like that. It's interesting when you're trying to sell a product versus a service. So either way, for early entrepreneurs out there, let me, if you have any questions, here to help.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the Growth Experts podcast. For those of you who want to check out Michelle Griffin, she is located on LinkedIn, and you can check out her business website, which is listed in the description below, and also in this banner. It's griffinresources.com. Thank you.